Howdy everyone, this is your buddy BP, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Sleeper Simulant. The Sleeper Simulant is a new solar damage exotic fusion rifle introduced in Destiny in the Taken King expansion pack. The Sleeper is unique in that it's a fusion rifle that goes in your heavy weapon slot. It's also ridiculously powerful and useful for boss fights during the raids. Do note that the Sleeper cannot be obtained through engrams, Zor, or random drops. Rather, you will have to complete a special quest in order to add this weapon to your arsenal. To begin this quest, you're going to need to collect 4 Dvalin Fusion Rifle relics. Chances are you've already collected a few of these. They're those items with fusion rifle icons and long, difficult to pronounce names that occasionally drop from killing enemies. There's no exact way to make enemies drop these, so my advice is to play lots of PvE and kill everything you can. I prefer the weekly heroic strike playlist for this, but as long as you're playing PvE activities, eventually enough of these will drop for you. Once you have them, turn them into the gunsmith and you'll be rewarded with some reputation. Once you have turned in 4 of these, the next step will be available. From orbit, you'll discover a new quest has become available, named the First Firewall. This mission will take you into the Rasputin War Mine on Earth, and will involve you going into the large underground chamber where you encountered Omnigul for the first time. Here, you will have to take on 4 waves of both Hive and Taken Knights. Pay close attention to the unusual order they spawn in because that's key to figuring out the next step. This fight is level 41, but it's not too difficult, and you should be able to complete it on your own. Once finished, you'll be rewarded with the Curious Transceiver. This is where the next step begins. From your inventory, examine the Curious Transceiver by pressing either Y or triangle. Here you will have to solve a series of 4 puzzles by correctly arranging the switches in the correct order. Remember the unusual order those knights spawned in during the previous mission? Well, there's your answer. Match up the switches for each part of the puzzle to match the order the knights spawned in during the first firewall, respectively. For those of you who didn't catch this, and I'm guessing that's most of you who's watching this, I'll go ahead and include the correct passcodes now. Once you've entered all the passcodes correctly, you will now have another new mission made available to you on Earth called Shadow Call. This mission takes place in the same place where you had to climb to the top of that large derelict spaceship to collect those stealth drives you needed to board the Dreadnought. For Shadow Call, you will have to climb to the top of the ship again, only this time you'll have to do it from the broken bridge just outside the entrance. From here, you will have 4 minutes to make it to the top and defeat 3 level 41 Taken wizards. My advice to you is to run past all the other enemies you see and make it to the top as fast as you can. Once there, open the chest in the middle of the room and the fight will begin. I recommend something you can use to do a ton of damage to them very quickly. My preference is the 4th Horseman, but I'll leave it up to you to decide what is best. This can be done solo, and I was able to complete it on my first try, but only with a few seconds to spare. It's a tricky one, so don't get frustrated if you need to attempt it more than once. Once you've taken care of all 3 wizards, you will be rewarded with the Ikelos Fusion Core. This device is instrumental in the development of your Sleeper Simulant, but when you examine it from the inventory, you'll realize it requires 5 more components to complete. These parts are the ionized shell harmonics, heavy power couplings, and plasma confinement control modules 1, 2, and 3. In order to obtain the ionized shell harmonics, simply beat the archive mission on Venus. That's it. You don't even have to do it on hard. Once completed, you will have the component. The heavy power couplings are also pretty easy to get. In order to get these, you just have to dismantle any legendary heavy weapon. It doesn't even have to be a Year 2 one. Any legendary heavy weapon will do. The plasma confinement control modules are rewarded by completing Warsat public events on Earth, the Moon, and Mars respectively. The Warsat events, as you may remember, are the ones where a large satellite falls from orbit and you have to defend it. The best way to catch one of these events is to go to destinypublicevents.com and check with their schedule for when and where to expect upcoming public events. They'll even tell you which ones are most likely to be Warsats. Be patient, however, as no public event listed here is 100% guaranteed to be a Warsat. The ones on the Moon and Mars only took a few minutes to complete, but it took nearly 2 hours before I found one on Earth. Odds are I was just unlucky, but luck and patience does play into this, so don't sweat it if you have to wait a while to find one. Once you have all 5 components, go to your inventory and inspect the Ikelos core. Here, you will be able to assemble the components to complete the core. Return to the gunsmith at the tower, give him the core, and he'll tell you to wait. That's right, wait. Until the next daily reset, in a matter of fact. All you can do here is simply be patient until tomorrow. Once the wait is over, return to the gunsmith and he'll give you the final task you need to get your sleeper simulant. You will need to defeat Saber 2 in a light level 280 version of the Strike on Earth. This fight can be a rough one, but don't worry about it because it also has matchmaking, so you won't have to scramble to find 2 friends to do it with you. Again, I recommend the 4th Horseman for the final fight, as it comes in handy when Saber 2 likes to get up close and personal with his attacks once his health drops. But again, I leave it up to you to decide which approach is best. Once finished, you will have your sleeper simulant frame. Turn it into the gunsmith, and there you have it. Welcome to the Sleeper Simulant Club. One quick look at the Sleeper Simulant and you'll quickly realize that this is a weapon like no other. In addition to it being a heavy fusion rifle, its stats are far different from any other fusion rifle in the game. You may first notice the Sleeper's impact, which is completely maxed out, complemented by its decent range and reload speed. The stability is painfully low, but this can be mitigated, and given how the Sleeper operates, it will rarely be an issue. The charge rate, however, is very slow, and players will need to learn how to account for it if they plan on using the Sleeper frequently, especially in the Crucible, where properly timing your shots can mean the difference between winning or losing a gunfight. The Sleeper Simulant's namesake perk causes the beam fired from the weapon to over-penetrate targets and ricochet on hard surfaces. Unlike ordinary fusion rifles, which fire a cluster of small bolts when fired, the Sleeper fires a single massive laser beam, kind of like the one the Spartan laser from Halo fires. This beam will cut through any target in its path, much like how the Golden Gun works with the Keyhole perk, causing obscene amounts of damage to anyone unfortunate enough to get caught in the crossfire. Also, unlike ordinary fusion rifles, the Sleeper is capable of dealing precision damage. On the body, the Sleeper deals damage comparable to a rocket launcher, but on the head, the damage increases greatly. Even against Tier 2 enemies at level 41, the Sleeper can deal damage over 15,000 per shot if you go for precision hits. Ricocheting shots, however, don't do much for this weapon. It certainly looks cool when your laser rebounds all over the walls and ceilings during boss fights, but rarely did they ever actually hit another enemy. Even after unlocking its final perk, Activate Ikelos, which causes the laser to ricochet multiple times, the laser almost never hits anyone except the occasional ad that clusters around bosses. It looks cool, but it doesn't offer much outside of that. Do note that if the beam ricochets back at you, then it will most definitely kill you, so be careful not to fire it while inside your Ward of Dawn unless you're looking to turn your Titan Bubble into Laser Zeppelin. The Sleeper Simulant's first set of perks include CQB Ballistics and Smooth Ballistics. The choice between the two will depend on whether you want to spec your Sleeper for range or stability. Personally, I prefer range so I can maximize its effectiveness from long distances, so Smooth Ballistics is for me. This will cause stability to take a hit, but the lengthy charge time will offer you plenty of time to readjust your aim between shots. The next perk is Hipfire, which increases the Sleeper's accuracy when firing from the hip. This perk is a complete waste on this weapon. In order to maximize the Sleeper's effectiveness, you need to land precision hits, and that means having to fine aim. Why you would try to land headshots with a heavy weapon like this without aiming is beyond me, as doing so would result in a lot of wasted heavy ammo, which is something you can't afford to be wasting in boss fights. The next set of optional perks includes Speed Reload, Custom Optics, and Injection Mold. I find that the Sleeper Simulant's base reload speed isn't too shabby on its own, so I prefer to ignore its Speed Reload. Injection Mold will increase the weapon's stability at the expense of range, which is fine if maxing out stability is what you're looking for, but again, I prefer taking the high range approach to my Sleeper Simulant. Call me crazy, but my preferred perk of choice is Custom Optics, which allows for a deeper zoom when aiming down the sights. Precision hits are key for maximizing this weapon's effectiveness, and Custom Optics makes it easier by allowing your enemies' weak spots to take up more real estate on your screen while fine aiming. This setup may not be the best for everyone, and in truth, all of these options are good, so I encourage you to try out different combinations of these perks until you find the one that best suits you. In PvE, the Sleeper Simulant is sometimes compared to the Yellowhorn, and it's certainly similar to the Yellowhorn in regards to how effective it is at completely melting bosses. But unlike the Yellowhorn, it's not as easy to use because it's dependent on precision hits, and it's not as effective at eliminating large clusters of smaller enemies. Does that mean that the Sleeper Simulant isn't as good a weapon as Yellowhorn? Not necessarily. While the Yellowhorn was unmatched in its ability to completely annihilate anything and everything, it was also kind of easy to use. I mean, it's a rocket launcher with tracking and proximity detonation that, upon detonation, unleashes even more smaller bomblets that track enemies. All you had to do to kill something with the Yellowhorn is aim, pull the trigger, and let the weapon do the rest of the work. It's effective, but it's not really challenging, and in my opinion at least, kind of robs the game of fun. The Sleeper is in the same league as the Yellowhorn in terms of raw power, but it's much more challenging to use, which makes it feel more rewarding and fun. Try running the Sleeper with your Defender Titan so you can use Weapons of Light to up its damage output, and don't forget to equip your Ruin Wings to increase your heavy ammo drops. Furthermore, I really dig the Sleeper Simulant's aesthetics. Its black geometric panels combined with its exposed mechanical components make me feel like I'm using some sort of top secret prototype railgun from the future. The green lights on its sights and interface are also sharp, stylish, and easy to read. Combined with the distinctive sounds the Sleeper makes when used, and you have a weapon that is classic sci-fi. It even has a little light above the trigger mechanism that flashes red when ammo is depleted. Very cool. In PvP, the Sleeper Simulant is an impractical choice for an exotic weapon, but it's fun to use. Running with the Sleeper in the Crucible is kind of like having Gunslinger's Golden Gun for a heavy weapon, only it's more powerful and it has to be charged up like a fusion rifle. Thankfully, headshots aren't as important here, as it will deal 595 damage on the body, more than enough to kill anyone. It can deal a massive 743 to the head, but in Crucible that's just overkill. This is dependent on you getting heavy ammo to use it, however, so if you're going to run a Sleeper for PvP activities, I suggest using it in either Mayhem, where heavy ammo drops more often, or game modes such as Skirmish or Salvage, where you're less likely to have heavy ammo stolen from you by enemies or impatient teammates. Let's summarize everything we've discussed here. The Sleeper Simulant is Destiny's Yellowhorn for Year 2. While it's not as easy a weapon to use as the Yellowhorn, it is immensely powerful, making it ideal for fights against raid bosses. Combined with its nice selection of optional perks and cool aesthetics, the Sleeper is a weapon that is a delight to use. The Sleeper Simulant isn't perfect, however. Its hipfire is a poor choice of a passive perk that doesn't complement how the weapon should be properly used. Its ricocheting shots, which are supposed to be part of what makes it special, rarely does anything apart from turning boss fights into light shows. Also, whereas the Yellowhorn was effective at clearing bosses and mobs alike, the Sleeper is best suited for dealing concentrated fire to large Tier 2 enemies, and not much more. And that just about does it for my guide and review of the Sleeper Simulant. What are your opinions on this very controversial weapon? Do you think that it's a fitting replacement for the Yellowhorn? Do you think it's a letdown given all the hype that was generated around it? Let me know in the comments section. Also, don't forget to spank that like button if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. And as always, y'all be good to each other, and I will see you in the next video.